Hello, and welcome to Wide Open Spaces with Elise, a podcast. This is episode number 123. Are you living your best life? Check out me at wideopenspaceswithelise.com. Elise is spelled I-L-I-S-E. You can listen to this podcast anywhere you love listening to your favorite podcast. Now let's pop in our earbuds and take a ride together. Before I start this podcast, I'd like to make a wonderful announcement. I will be launching a new podcast with two other women. It is called Unleash the Beast, an empowerment series. The first podcast will be videoed and it will launch on November 27th of 2023. We are really excited. We're working hard to put it together, and I think that if you're a listener of mine, you are really going to love Unleash the Beast, an empowerment series. Okay, let's start with Wide Open Spaces with Elise. So, this podcast is about self-exploration, getting to know yourself better, looking within inside yourself, areas that you want to work on or that you think you need to change your direction in life. Just really figuring out what makes you tick, what's going on with you. Take away the work, peel away the layers of your life. If you're in school is a layer. If you're a parent, your home life, your children is a layer. Your job is a layer. Stressors in your life may be a layer. If you're taking care of someone who's not well, these are all layers in that onion that you peel away until you get to your core center. And so while you're listening to this podcast today, I want you to peel all those layers away. And I want you to focus on you, your core you, as I do this podcast today. Try to think about your needs and not others' needs, what you really need to accomplish in your life. So I was sitting in my backyard enjoying, there's a little bit of a breeze now in South Florida, still hot as heck, don't get me wrong. But what's hot to South Florida may be wonderful weather somewhere else. And for me, it's not super hot. I've built up my tolerance being born and raised here. So it's hot, but I still go out in a lounge chair, feel the breeze, feel the sun on my face a little bit. Got my earbuds in, and a song comes on through my Amazon Music, and it's Ben Rector's song, Living My Best Life. And so I'm listening to the words, and of course the words don't pertain to what I may be going through in my life. Right now I'm going through that empty nester phase and goals and things that I'm working on, like a new podcast to enhance this podcast. And so I had to internalize it and not necessarily go through what his life experience is, but I had to sit and ask myself, am I living my best life? And that's a hard question to ask yourself. Am I living my best life? Are you living your best life? Not so easy, right? Kind of brings back feelings or makes your stomach churn a little bit, or maybe your heart drops a little. Maybe you get a big smile on your face because you feel like you're living your best life. That's what comes to mind when you ask your question. Are you living your best life? Now you've really got to dig deep, and I had to dig deep to think about, am I living my best life? And I think for right now, I am, and going through a transitional stage in my life, and I've set new goals and things I want to accomplish and places I want to be and do. And so I'm taking it one day at a time, but I've got goals in sight. And though I might not be living my optimal best life, I'm making steps forward to accomplish these goals that I'd like to incorporate within myself. Now, we all have that inner child. We all have those dreams that we had when we were a kid. I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be in movies. I'm talking when I was really young, little kid, elementary school, not really knowing what being famous really meant and how hard it is and the stressors that can be put on with it. But those were cute little inner child dreams that I had. I know you all had inner child dreams based on what your makeup was, what your home life was like. Having tragic home lives, difficult home lives, all make us who we are today and give us those ambitions or those desires or those feels of things, how we want to change our life and move in a certain direction with our life. Or maybe we're falling into those patterns and we want to break out of those patterns. You may have lived in a wonderful home with not a lot of challenges. So you really haven't challenged yourself because you never really had to. And maybe it's time to. Maybe you've come across challenges in life that you never, ever, ever expected to be challenged with. And your life path has been altered because of it. Now's the time to peel all that away and let's focus on you. You, the listener, you are in front of me right now. And I want you to focus. I want you to tap into that inner child. I want you to tap into your adult dreams and desires. Now, I know it's hard. It's hard to look at ourselves. It's hard to admit that we failed, we didn't accomplish, we're not efficient enough in something, or we just kind of let something go when we should have kept our grasp on it. It's hard to identify that about ourselves because in our mind, the way we're conditioned, it's a failure. I don't want you to look at those things as a failure. I want you to change that thought process around. You're not a failure. Maybe you took the wrong road to accomplish that goal. Maybe you made some choices that just didn't get you to that point. It doesn't mean you can't change it now. It doesn't mean that you can't alter that and work on it in a different way or take a totally different approach. You must break those internal walls. You know, those negative messages that we feed ourselves a lot. Don't tell me you don't. We all feed ourselves negative messages. We are our own worst, hardest critics of ourselves. And it's a hard pattern to change. And it takes a lot of work. Part of that is to look at that inner self and identify these accomplishments in life and these things you haven't accomplished and start to work on it. So when you do accomplish, well, that inner voice starts to pat ourselves on the back a little bit. And the more we accomplish, or maybe we've adapted and we've had to change and we pat ourselves on the back for that. Being able to mold yourself and change and kind of go with the changes is complex and difficult, but when you start to be able to accomplish that, you've really added something amazing to your repertoire in your life of ways to cope. I want to read you one of the passages from Ben Rector's song, Living My Best Life. I'm going to read you the first one. Sometimes it sucks to tell the truth, and I took it hard like people do. But I'm learning how to eat the fruit that is in season. Never thought I'd be a grown-ass man, but you know what they say of the best laid plans. So that's about, now take away whether you're male or female, let's just look at life, right? Maybe we had a profession that we thought was the end-all be-all, and you're not happy. You're miserable. Maybe you had goals in life of having a family or having a significant other, and it's just not working for you. You're not happy. We all have those best laid plans, right? You know, you find somebody, you fall in love, maybe you have a wedding and a honeymoon and then have children and something happens. And the fairy tale is no longer a fairy tale. And the best laid plans just aren't working out anymore. It's really hard to accept when we have those plans and things we've worked hard for in our life and they just aren't working out for us. It's really, really tough. Okay. If you're driving, obviously you can't do this. And maybe you want to hit pause for a minute. And if you hit pause, please come back. Don't leave it open-ended, because I want you to find a quiet spot. A quiet spot that you feel safe in, that you feel comfort in, that you feel that you can open your mind in. Don't pick a place that you feel closed in or might not let those, let's say, creative juices flow. And once you've found that spot, maybe you've got to get up and move right now and take your phone and your earbuds with you and find a place in your house or your workplace if you're on your lunch break. Or if you're in college at school, go find a nice place to sit, a nice tree or something, and listen to the rest of this podcast. So once you've gotten in your place, that cozy comfort, safe space. We all need to have safe spaces. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to take a deep, casual, very easy breath in, relaxed. And let's do this for 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Now with your eyes closed, I want you right now to let your heart be free and let your heart and mind be open to this activity that I'm going to have you do. As you look down in your mind's eye at your hand, you are now holding one of those small jars of bubbles. You know, with the wand, with the single little round hole that you dip in the bubbles, you pull out and you blow into it. And as you blow, all these bubbles are in front of you. I want you to dip your stick in the bubble jar, give it a good twist in there, pull it out, and blow the bubbles. I want you to imagine that these bubbles aren't popping. They're floating in front of you in the beauty of the environment that you're in right now. Your eyes are closed and you're envisioning these bubbles. And in these bubbles, in each bubble, I want, for some of those bubbles, goals that you've accomplished, life accomplishments, things that you've done. Maybe you didn't think you were ever going to finish high school, and you did, and you graduated, and you got a diploma. Maybe you thought you were never going to move on after a relationship breakup, but you did, and it's wonderful. Maybe you applied for a promotion, and you got it. That was a goal of yours. So these bubbles put all these goals that you've accomplished in front of you. They're floating there with those iridescent colors that the bubbles have as they kind of move and rotate. Within the center, your goal's accomplished. Now to the other side of you, there's these empty bubbles. These empty bubbles are all the things that you've ever wanted to do. Those inner child dreams, like being famous, or maybe writing a book. Maybe you wanted to journal every day and you just never have done it. In those bubbles that are empty, you now place those goals that have never been accomplished or that you've never even addressed. But they've been a thought for you. They've been a want. They've been a desire for you. So now you have bubbles of goals accomplished and bubbles of dreams, ideas, things that you wanted in your life that have not been accomplished. I now want you to take your fingertip and pop each bubble slowly of the goals you've accomplished, one by one. I graduated college. Pop. I now am doing meditation every day. Pop. I've been focusing on my health more, doing healthy things for myself. Pop. I think you get the idea. Start popping one by one your goals accomplished. Now, once you've popped all those wonderful goals that you've accomplished, pat yourself on the back, put your hand on your heart, give yourself some love because you've accomplished things in your life. Good things, positive things. If you didn't have a lot of goals accomplished, that's okay. That's why you're here today, to work on living your best life so that you can have more bubbles that you can pop as you grow and as you evolve. Now, all the bubbles that are in front of us, and most of us should have a lot of those unfinished things or new things that we've thought about that we want to do, just floating in front of us. Each bubble has one of those things. Look at them. Take them in. Feel them. Understand them. Why are these things in those bubbles as unaccomplished? Now take a deep breath in and out. Internalize the bubbles that have not been popped and open your eyes. Now quickly jot down on your smartphones the goals you've accomplished. Put whatever title you want, give it a cool title, I don't care. Jot them down. Now jot down all the goals that are unaccomplished. And guess what? You know how hard it is to really look deep inside ourselves to figure out, where have I failed? Where have I gone wrong? What were the things I wanted but I never work on? I just don't find the energy, or I don't think it's important enough. You just dug deep inside your inner self and did one of the hardest tasks that a person has to do. Identifying where they failed, where they haven't accomplished, where they've fallen short, unfulfilled dreams, unfulfilled desires. It's hard to look inside ourselves, but by doing this visualization, you concretely were able to do this. And if you had a really difficult time doing it while you're sitting listening to this podcast, maybe come back in a few hours. You now know what to do, and sit in that safe spot again and try it all over again. Sometimes when we're in the middle of the day and busy, our mind doesn't open up the way we want it to. Sometimes it has to be when we're at home at the end of the day, when we've finished our work and you're settled in for the evening. Whatever it may be, if you found that this was difficult for you, maybe reapproach it at a different moment in time. Excuse me. Okay, so now you have a list. You have a list of things that were accomplished and unaccomplished. Now look at your unaccomplished list. Some of those might be the things like wanting to be famous, and you can slowly cross that out. Because maybe it was just a childhood dream, not really realizing what it was. Maybe you thought you were going to be a doctor. You loved playing, with your stethoscopes and putting Band-Aids on boo-boos when you were little. And as you got older, that was not something you wanted to be. You can cross those things out. Maybe you have gone through a divorce and things that you wanted for that relationship are no longer a possibility. You can cross those things out. When you're done crossing out things, you'll be left with those things that you yourself in your current situation, age, and life are now still yearning, still wanting, still desiring. Look at the list. You now have a list. That's the hard part, is finding that list. Finding how you want to enhance, amplify, nurture, raise the level of where your life is in your current situation. Like me with my transition of being an empty nester. This is kind of what motivated me. Knowing it was coming, I had to start planning. And I had to look at those bubbles. And some of those bubbles I'm now working on. They're not popped yet because it's not accomplished. And sometimes some of those bubbles may not be popped for a really, really long time. That's okay as long as you're working on it. I'd like to share one other passage from Ben Rector's song, now that we've identified what we've accomplished, what we haven't, what we no longer want to accomplish, and we have our list. I'm living my best life, the best that I can. No more worry or stress life, because I'm done with them. I'm as light as can be. I'm as fresh as a breeze, right where I want to be. So there's your goal, is to release the stress. Start doing the things that you've always, make plans for those things that you've always wanted to do. It'll bring light into your life. It'll bring that fresh air, that breeze into your life. You're right where you want to be. It'll give you, you know how they say, you see some people who have like a pep in their step. You can just tell that they're kind of riding a high, a natural high for some reason. That's where you want to be. And each little step that you make towards accomplishing something that you've always desired, make sure you tell yourself, good job. You're doing good. You're taking care of yourself. This will counterbalance that negative thought process that we all have. And I'm not going to tell you that those negative thoughts aren't going to seep in. Because sometimes when you're trying to accomplish a goal, you kind of get pushed back a little bit, or things, okay, it's not working this way. How do I pivot? How do I change? Maybe I'm going at it the same way I would have always gone at something. My go-to, my traditional way of accomplishing goals. Maybe this particular goal isn't going to follow your traditional path. Maybe you need to pivot and become more creative. Maybe talk to people, brainstorm with people. It's always great to have other people's opinions, no matter what situation you're in. Go to people who will be honest with you, but not in a hurtful way. You want it to be honesty that they'll give you because they have your best interest in mind. So pivot when you have to pivot. Pivoting is hard. We all get stuck in our ways, right? And it's hard to pivot. It's hard to change our focus. I've had to change my whole life focus. There's no kids at home anymore. If I don't pivot, I'm in trouble. If I don't pivot, I fall into depression and sadness. And then I'm not functioning and I'm not living out my best life. So if pivoting is the answer, don't resist it. Don't be forceful against it. Allow it. Pivot. Allow your brain to grow. Allow your brain to change. Allow it to envelop and bring in new ideas and new ways of doing things. When you do something differently than you ever have before, you kind of feel like, kind of ingenious of me, right? It's kind of good. I kind of like that I stepped out of that comfort zone and I took a different approach. It's really a empowering way to go through life. And don't let those stumbling blocks get you down. If you pivot, if you take time, and you may just decide as you're trying, I don't think this is really for me. I thought this is what I wanted, but it's not. I think I want it to look differently. I think I want it to be differently. It could be changing your total direction of your profession. Maybe you've worked in an HR department at a hospital for years, and now you want to go to a tech company and learn all about the HR and how tech works. Maybe that's never something you've ever thought you wanted to do before. I only worked in hospitals and outpatient settings, and here I am now sitting doing a podcast about mental health, self-care, and motivation. I pivoted because I no longer wanted to work in that setting. I never in my life saw myself doing this. And now a second podcast with 2 other women, creating a conversational way that we can empower people. You never know how your life is going to pivot and how it's going to change. As long as you keep your mind and your heart and your will open to change and wanting to accomplish goals, you're living your best life. Thank you for joining me today at Wide Open Spaces with Elise. Remember, positive thoughts always create positive energy. Go out and explore all those wide open spaces in your world. And until next time, my friends, ciao.